The marble floor of the Celestial Hotel was so polished I could see my reflection in it, fractured and ghost-like, matching exactly how I felt inside. My arms ached as I shifted the weight of the donated medical supply boxes, the cardboard edges cutting into my forearms hard enough to leave red marks. I focused on that pain, anything to distract from the growing dread coiling in my stomach like a living thing. I'd been making supply runs to this hotel's charity drop-off for 6 weeks now, always through the service entrance, always invisible. Today, the security guard had waved me through the main lobby because the back entrance was blocked by a corporate event setup. Of course, because my life wasn't complicated enough without walking through a space where Braden might be lurking. The lobby stretched before me like an impossible distance, all vaulted ceilings and golden chandeliers that scattered light across the space like scattered diamonds. The air smelled of expensive leather and white orchids from the towering arrangement near the concierge desk. My worn running shoes made soft scuffing sounds against that perfect floor, announcing my presence, marking me as someone who didn't belong among the tailored suits and designer dresses. I kept my head down, counting steps. 32 to the elevators. Then I could disappear up to the 20th floor conference room, drop off the bandages and antiseptics for the animal welfare fundraiser, collect my volunteer coordinator's signature, and escape back into my small, controlled world. 32 steps. I could manage that. Olivia. The voice paralyzed me mid-stride. My heart stopped. That familiar tone with its sharp edge that always made promises sound like threats, turning my blood to ice in my veins. I didn't turn around. Maybe if I kept walking, he'd think he was mistaken. Maybe reality would bend just this once in my favor. Olivia, stop. I know that's you. Footsteps behind me, measured and purposeful. My pulse hammered against my ribcage as I clutched the supply boxes tighter and walked faster. 19 steps to the elevators. Just 19 more steps. Don't you dare walk away from me. His hand clamped onto my shoulder, spinning me around with enough force that I nearly dropped both boxes. Braden looked exactly as he had 8 months ago when I'd finally broken free. Dark blonde hair swept back with too much gel, pale gray eyes that had once seemed protective, but now just looked possessive. He wore an expensive 3-piece suit, probably purchased with his trust fund since his consulting business had never actually consulted anyone. The familiar scent of a cedar cologne made my throat close. I need to make this delivery, I said, grateful that my voice only wavered slightly. Please let me go. Let you go. His laugh was cold, sharp. Like you let me go? Just disappeared one day, changed your number, moved without leaving a forwarding address. We were living together, Olivia. We had plans. We were never on the same page about those plans. I took a step backward, trying to create distance between us. I left you a letter. I explained everything. Your letter? He spat the words like poison. 3 years together, and you end it with a letter slipped under my apartment door. Do you have any idea how that made me look? How my colleagues reacted? How everyone at the firm whispered behind my back? The thing about Braden was that everything always circled back to him, to his reputation, to how things affected his standing with people whose opinions defined his entire existence. I'd spent 3 years trying to mold myself into his vision of the ideal partner, attending his networking dinners, enduring his criticism about my impractical, volunteer work, my unflattering, comfortable clothes, my naive attachment to animals. The day I'd moved into my cramped studio apartment above the pet supply store where I worked part-time, taking only what was mine, had been the first time I'd felt like myself in years. I'm sorry you felt embarrassed, I said, aiming for calm despite my racing heart. But we wanted completely different lives. You know that. What I know is that you owe me a real conversation, face to face. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Never hard enough to leave evidence. Braden was too calculated for that. but firm enough to communicate that I wasn't leaving until he decided otherwise. The boxes teetered dangerously in my arms. "You're going to make me drop these, and they contain medical supplies worth hundreds of dollars that the rescue can't afford to replace." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me in front of my entire social circle." My vision narrowed, the opulent lobby around us fading as my focus tunneled to his hand on my wrist, to the familiar sensation of being trapped, controlled, diminished. This was how it had always been, his needs, his ego, his control disguised as concern. I'd sworn to myself, never again. Never again would I let someone make me feel this powerless. "Let go of me." The words came out stronger than I expected, sharp enough that an elegantly dressed woman passing nearby glanced our way with raised eyebrows. Braden's expression shifted, his grip loosening fractionally, but not releasing. "We're making a scene, Olivia. You hate scenes. Just come to the lounge with me. We'll have a civilized discussion like adults, and then you can make your delivery." "I don't want to have a discussion." "Too bad." His fingers tightened again, pressure points digging into my wrist bone. "You don't get to just walk away from 3 years without giving me closure." The elevator bank was only 12 feet away. If I could just break free, if I could reach those doors before he caught up, I could escape this nightmare repeating itself. The lobby suddenly felt suffocating, the beautiful space transforming into a gilded cage. "Braden, please." I hated the pleading note creeping into my voice, hated that he'd reduced me to begging again. "1 drink. 20 minutes. Then I'll let you go." We both knew that was a lie. 20 minutes would become an hour, then 2, then he'd insist on dinner, want to remind me of good times, want to erode my resistance until I agreed to give him another chance. I'd lived this pattern, survived it, escaped it. My eyes darted past him, searching for help, for security, for anyone who might intervene. The hotel staff carefully avoided looking our way, trained to ignore minor conflicts among guests. The wealthy patrons in the lobby maintained their distance, unwilling to involve themselves in someone else's drama. I was alone. Again. The realization ignited something in me. I twisted sharply, breaking his grip with the wrist lock escape I'd learned in the self-defense class I'd taken after leaving him. The supply boxes listed dangerously, but I managed to steady them as I spun away, my shoes squeaking against that perfect marble as I lunged toward the elevators. "Olivia!" Braden's shout ricocheted through the lobby, drawing every eye. I slammed my palm against the call button. Once, twice, 3 times, as if repetition would summon the elevator faster. Behind me, I could hear his footsteps accelerating, closing the distance. My reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a young woman with terrified eyes and tangled hair still damp from this afternoon's emergency dog bath at the shelter, clutching medical supply boxes like they were armor. The door slid open with a soft chime that sounded like salvation. I threw myself forward without looking, desperate only to be anywhere he wasn't, to have steel doors between us, to have a moment to breathe and think and plan my next escape. My shoulder collided with something solid, warm, immovable. The supply boxes began their inevitable tumble toward the pristine elevator floor. Strong hands caught them, plucking them from my grasp with startling speed and inhuman precision, steadying them before a single roll of bandages could spill out. I stumbled backward, looking up at the man I'd just crashed into with enough force to knock over someone smaller. He was not smaller. The stranger stood well over 6 feet tall, powerfully built in a way that suggested primal strength rather than cultivated muscle. His dark charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, the kind of expensive simplicity that whispered rather than shouted wealth. But it was his face that stopped my breath, sharp, angular features that seemed carved from stone, dark hair falling just past his collar, and eyes. His eyes were the color of amber shot through with shadow, watching me with an intensity that made every nerve in my body stand at attention. And for just a heartbeat, So brief I thought I'd imagined it. Those eyes flashed with a deep, burning red glow. Olivia. Braden's voice cut through the elevator's closing doors. His hand shot forward, fingers splayed to catch the gap. The stranger's gaze shifted past me, those amber eyes locking onto Braden with a focus that felt predatory. Without a word, without even shifting his stance, he moved. One hand still cradling my supply boxes, the other palm pressed flat against the closing door, accelerating its movement with impossible force. The red glow flickered again in his eyes, brighter this time, unmistakable. The door sealed shut with a decisive thud that echoed like a judge's gavel. Through the narrow gap, I caught a glimpse of Braden's face, shock giving way to fury, his mouth forming words I couldn't hear. Then the elevator lurched upward, and he disappeared from view. My legs buckled. I caught myself against the polished brass handrail, my breath coming in ragged gasps that sounded too loud in the confined space. The stranger set my boxes down on the elevator floor with careful precision, then straightened to his full, imposing height. Olivia William. His voice was low, controlled, with a rough edge that raised goosebumps along my arms. Not a question, a statement. How do you? My words died as he turned fully toward me. I make it my business to know who operates within my territory. He studied me with unnerving intensity, his head tilting slightly as though he could read something written beneath my skin. You run the Riverside Animal Rescue. You work 3 part-time jobs to keep it funded. You deliver supplies to charity events hoping to network with donors. He paused. And you've been running from Braden Mitchell for 8 months. Ice flooded my veins. Who are you? Alex Cale. He said it like I should recognize the name. When I didn't react, something that might have been amusement flickered across his severe features. You're afraid of him. I can smell it on you. The fear, the exhaustion, the desperation. The elevator shuddered to a sudden stop between floors. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting harsh shadows across his angular face. What's happening? Panic spiked through me. We're having a conversation. He leaned against the elevator wall with casual dominance, arms crossed. You need protection. I need a human mate. What? There's a faction within my organization challenging my leadership. They claim I've grown too isolated, too disconnected from the human world we operate within. His jaw tightened. A public relationship with a human would demonstrate stability, approachability. 6 months. That's all I need. You're insane. I pressed myself against the opposite wall, my mind racing for escape routes that didn't exist. Let me out of this elevator. In exchange, you receive my complete protection. Braden Mitchell will never touch you again. Your rescue will receive unlimited funding. You'll have access to resources most people can't imagine. His eyes flashed red again, holding the glow longer this time. And when 6 months have passed, you walk away with your freedom intact and enough money to purchase any property you want for your sanctuary. Why would you? I stopped, really looking at him, at the way he held himself, coiled and controlled, at the red glow that pulsed in his eyes like embers, at his hands where his nails seemed too long, too sharp, tapering to points that couldn't be natural. What are you? Does it matter? He pushed off the wall, closing half the distance between us with one fluid step. You're dealing with a monster you can't escape on your own. I'm offering you a different arrangement, one where you're protected instead of hunted. My back pressed against the cold elevator wall. Every instinct screamed danger, but beneath that primal fear was something else. The bone-deep exhaustion of 8 months spent looking over my shoulder. The suffocating weight of knowing Braden would never stop, that my small acts of resistance would eventually crumble under his relentless pressure. Complete obedience, Alex continued, his voice dropping lower. Public acceptance that you belong to me. In return, absolute security. I stared at those inhuman eyes, at the claws that shouldn't exist, at this stranger who somehow knew everything about my life. 6 months, I whispered. 6 months. And then I'm free. Something shifted in his expression. Triumph, perhaps, or satisfaction. Then you're free. I closed my eyes, thought of Braden's hand on my wrist, thought of 3 more years of running and hiding and fear. Yes. Alex's home wasn't a home. It was a fortress disguised as a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but I noticed immediately they were reinforced, the glass too thick to be ordinary. Security cameras hidden in the crown molding, doors that locked with biometric scanners. The modern furniture and expensive art felt like set dressing for something far more primal beneath. 2 men waited in the living room, standing with military precision. The first was built like a wall, dark-skinned with close-cropped hair and eyes that assessed me like I was a threat to be neutralized. The second was leaner, sandy-haired, with a sharp intelligence in his pale blue gaze that felt like being dissected. My beta, Marcus, Alex said, gesturing to the larger man. And my gamma, Connor. Neither offered to shake my hand. A human. Marcus's voice was granite scraping against granite. This is your solution? This is my decision. Alex's tone left no room for argument. She's under pack protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Connor circled me slowly, his nostrils flaring slightly. She smells like fear and dog kibble. I run an animal rescue, I said, lifting my chin despite my pounding heart. Brave, Connor murmured, though it didn't sound like a compliment. Or stupid. Enough. Alex moved between us with that unnatural speed. Marcus, ensure her apartment is cleared and her belongings are moved here by tonight. Connor, handle the Mitchell situation. Quietly. The Mitchell situation. Braden. A chill ran through me at how casually Alex ordered my ex's life to be handled. What does that mean? I asked after they'd left. It means he'll never bother you again. Alex pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen. Now, the rules. You don't leave this building without Marcus or Connor accompanying you. You answer when I call, immediately. In public, you stay within arm's reach of me at all times. You said 6 months. I protested. Not 6 months of house arrest. His eyes flashed red. You said yes to my protection. This is what protection looks like in my world. 3 days later, I stood in a ballroom wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly rent, Alex's hand burning against the small of my back. The charity gala was supposedly for wildlife conservation, but it felt more like a battlefield where everyone wore evening gowns and false smiles. Stay close, Alex murmured, his breath warm against my ear. A woman in diamonds approached, her smile sharp. Alex, you must introduce us to your companion. My partner, he corrected, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Olivia William. His fingers tightened on my waist, possessive in a way that sent conflicting signals through my nervous system. Part warning, part something else I didn't want to examine. When a man tried to guide me toward the bar with a hand on my elbow, Alex was there instantly, inserting himself between us with a low sound that might have been a growl. She stays with me. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, after 8 months of Braden's violation of my boundaries, there was something almost reassuring about Alex's absolute certainty of where the lines were drawn. The weeks blurred together in unexpected ways. Alex had meant what he said about unlimited resources. Within days, I had a warehouse space for the rescue, fully renovated with proper kennels, and a surgical suite that made me cry the first time I saw it. Veterinary supplies arrived in bulk. My volunteer coordinator quit her second job because I could finally afford to pay her properly. I spent my days covered in fur and mud, bottle-feeding premature kittens and rehabilitating a 3-legged shepherd, while Marcus watched from the doorway with something that might have been grudging respect. Connor started bringing me coffee without being asked, though he still looked at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. And Braden? Silence. Complete, absolute silence. No calls, no surprise visits, no messages through mutual friends. It was like he'd simply vanished from my life, leaving nothing behind but fading bruises on my wrist and the slowly loosening knot of fear in my chest. For the first time in years, I could breathe. 6 weeks into our arrangement, I started noticing the small things. How Alex always positioned himself between me and doors. How he poured my coffee exactly the way I liked it without asking, 2 sugars, no cream. How he'd appear in the rescue warehouse doorway at the end of long days, his expensive suits somehow tolerating the dog hair and antiseptic smell, just to drive me home himself. "You don't have to do this," I said one evening as he held the car door open. "Marcus could." "I know." His hand found the small of my back, a gesture that had become automatic between us. I preferred to. The touch lingered longer now. His thumb would trace small circles against my spine. Our fingers would brush when he handed me things. At galas and fundraisers, I'd lean into him without thinking, and his arm would tighten around my waist like he was anchoring me to him. Late one night, I found him in his study, surrounded by contracts and territorial maps that marked boundaries I didn't understand. The harsh desk light carved shadows under his eyes, making him look centuries old instead of early 30s. "You should sleep," I said from the doorway. "There are 50 families depending on the decisions I make." He rubbed his temples. "Sleep feels like a luxury I can't afford." I crossed the room, stood beside his chair. Even alpha kings need rest. His hand caught mine, thumb pressing against my pulse point. "When did you stop being afraid of me?" "I'm not sure I ever was." The admission surprised us both. "Afraid of what you are, maybe, but not you." Something shifted in his expression, vulnerable, raw. His lips parted like he might say something important, but his phone buzzed with an incoming message. The moment shattered. The Northside Summit 2 weeks later was different from the other events. The air felt charged, predatory. Alex's tension bled through his careful control, his hand gripping my waist almost painfully. "Stay close," he murmured. "Torvin's here." A man appeared through the crowd like a shark cutting through water. Tall, silver-haired, with eyes the color of ice and a smile that promised violence. Other guests parted around him instinctively. Alex Kale. His voice carried, drawing attention. "Still playing house with your little human pet?" Alex's fingers dug into my hip.
"Torvin.
"I thought you'd learn to mind your own territory. But this is so entertaining." Torvin's gaze slid to me, cold and assessing. "She's very fragile, isn't she? One wonders how long something so breakable can last in our world." "Careful." The word rumbled from Alex's chest, half growl. "Is that a threat?" Torvin stepped closer, his attention fixed on me now with predatory focus. "What's your name, little human?" "Step back." Alex moved between us, but Torvin was faster, his hand shooting out toward my face. Instinct took over. I jerked backward, my hand raising defensively, and pain exploded through my fingertips. Sharp, searing, like my bones were tearing through my skin. I looked down and froze. My nails had elongated into dark, curved claws, extending a full inch beyond where they should end. The ballroom went silent. Torvin's eyes widened, genuine shock cracking his cruel mask.
Impossible.
Alex caught my hand, his expression stunned, almost reverent. The claws retracted slowly, painfully, leaving my fingers trembling and my nails perfectly normal again. My hand was bleeding where they'd emerged, but even as I watched, the small cuts sealed themselves, skin knitting together with impossible speed. "What's happening to me?" My voice came out strangled. Alex pulled me against his chest, his heart hammering beneath my ear. "You're bonding," he said, quiet enough that only I could hear. To me, you're becoming something more. Over his shoulder, I saw Torvin's expression shift from shock to calculation, his smile returning with deadly intent. Well, he said softly, this changes everything, doesn't it? The War Council, as Marcus called it, convened in Alex's study at 3 a.m. I sat in the corner, still shaking from the night's events, while Alex paced like a caged animal. Connor spread maps across the desk, marking territories with red ink that looked too much like blood. Torvin's already moving, Connor reported. He's pulled in allies from the Eastern Pacts. They're claiming you violated the Accords by creating an unauthorized bond with a human. I didn't create anything. Alex's eyes flashed red. The bond chose her. Doesn't matter. Marcus crossed his arms. He's using it as justification for a territorial challenge. If you don't meet him, you forfeit your borders and your pack. When? Alex's voice was granite. 3 days. The old industrial district, neutral ground. Alex stopped pacing, his gaze finding mine across the room. Something in his expression made my chest tighten. Olivia goes to the northern safe house. Tonight. What? I stood, my legs unsteady.
No.
It's not a discussion. He turned to Marcus.
Take her.
Full guard detail. No one gets within a mile of that location. Alex.
Now.
The command in his voice made Marcus move toward me. I backed away. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are. Alex closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands framing my face with surprising gentleness. Torvin saw what happened tonight. He knows exactly how to hurt me now. Then don't go. My fingers wrapped around his wrists, holding him to me. There has to be another way. There isn't. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I realized his hand was trembling. If I don't face him, he'll come here. He'll tear through my pack to get to you, and I won't risk that. So, you're just going to send me away? Like I'm cargo to be stored safely while you... My voice broke. While I do what I was born to do. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm against my lips. This was always going to end with a fight, Olivia. I just didn't think I'd have so much to lose. Then let me stay. Let me. You're my weakness. The words came out raw, like they'd been torn from somewhere deep. The only one I've ever had.
Torvin will exploit that.
He'll use you against me, and I can't, his jaw clenched. I can't watch him hurt you. I won't survive it. Tears burned behind my eyes. This isn't just political anymore, is it?
No.
His eyes met mine, amber and red swirling together. It stopped being political the moment you trusted me enough to fall asleep on my couch. When you smiled at me over morning coffee. When you let me hold you at that first gala and didn't flinch away. His voice dropped to a whisper. You're my mate, Olivia. My true mate. And that means protecting you, even from myself.
No.
The word came out stronger than I expected. I pushed away from him, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. I spent 3 years with Braden being told I was too weak, too soft, too human to handle his world. Then I spent 8 months running because I thought survival meant staying invisible. My nails dug into my palms, and I felt them starting to elongate again, responding to my emotion. I'm done running, Alex. You gave me that gift. You made me stop running. I'm not starting again now. Olivia. I'm not going to the safe house. I stepped forward, closing the distance he'd created. I'm not going to hide while you fight a war that started because of me. You said I was brave or stupid when we met. Maybe I'm both. But I'm staying, and I'm fighting for you, because you saved me when no one else would. His expression cracked, something fierce and possessive blazing in his eyes. You don't know what you're asking. I'm not asking. My hand found his chest, feeling his heart race beneath my palm. I'm telling you, I'm not running anymore. Not from Braden, not from Torvin, and not from this. I pressed my hand harder against his heart. Not from us. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then his hand covered mine, holding it against him. Then we fight together, he said finally. And God help anyone who tries to take you from me. The fire started at dawn. I was in the warehouse office reviewing supply orders when my phone erupted with alerts from the security system. The cameras showed smoke pouring from the kennels, dark figures moving through the chaos with deliberate purpose.
No.
The word ripped from my throat. I was running before I could think. Marcus's shouts behind me ignored as I crashed through the door. The heat hit me first, then the sound, animals screaming in terror. 3 men stood near the main kennel block, one holding a gas can, their faces obscured by masks. But I could smell them, that wrong scent that marked Torvin's pack, predators playing with matches. Get away from them. I didn't recognize my own voice, didn't recognize the rage that turned my vision red at the edges. The nearest man laughed. The little human mate. Torvin said you might show up. This is a distraction. Marcus appeared beside me, his phone pressed to his ear. Alex is already at the industrial district. They're drawing you away from protection. I don't care. My hands were changing, claws extending without pain now. Natural and right. They're hurting my animals. I moved before Marcus could stop me. The first man didn't expect speed, didn't expect the claws that raked across his arm, drawing blood and a howl of pain. The second one shifted, bones cracking as he became something between man and wolf, but I was already there, my legs sweeping his knees out with a move I'd never learned, instinct guiding me. The third one ran. Marcus and Connor appeared with fire extinguishers, containing the blaze before it could spread. The animals were safe, terrified, but alive. But my phone was ringing, Alex's name flashing across the screen. It's a trap. His voice was strained, breathless. Don't come to the industrial district. Torvin has. The line went dead. I was in Marcus's car before he could protest, Connor taking the wheel with grim determination. He'll kill us for this, Connor muttered, but his foot pressed harder on the accelerator. The industrial district was a graveyard of rusted machinery and broken concrete, and in the center of it, Alex was losing. Blood soaked his shirt, his movements slower than they should be. Torvin circled him with 3 others, all of them shifted into their hybrid forms, all of them fresh, while Alex had clearly been fighting for hours. You should have sent her away, Torvin called out, his voice distorted by his transformation. Now she'll watch you fall. Alex's eyes found mine across the distance, amber and red and terrified. Run.
No.
I stepped forward, and something inside me cracked open like an egg. Power flooded through me, burning through my veins, turning my fear into something sharper, something deadly. My body shifted, not fully like them, but enough, claws extending fully, my senses sharpening until I could hear every heartbeat, smell every drop of spilled blood. One of Torvin's men lunged for Marcus. I was there, impossibly fast, my claws catching him mid-leap and sending him crashing into concrete hard enough to crack it. Connor engaged another, and suddenly the numbers were even.
Impossible, Torvin bretted.
You're human. She's mine. Alex's voice was stronger now, renewed. He straightened despite his wounds, his eyes blazing as he looked at me. And you just made a fatal mistake. What happened next was brutal and swift. Alex moved like lightning, his exhaustion burned away by something primal and possessive. He caught Torvin by the throat, slamming him down with enough force to crater the ground beneath them. You threatened my mate, Alex growled, his voice barely human. You burned her sanctuary. You made her fight, Alex. I was there beside him, my hand on his arm.
I'm okay.
We're okay. He looked at me, really looked, taking in my partial transformation, the blood on my hands that wasn't mine, the fierce protectiveness in my eyes. Something in him settled, the killing rage cooling to controlled fury. "Yield," he demanded, his grip tightening on Torvin's throat. "I yield." The words came out strangled, defeated. Alex released him, but didn't step back. "Take your pack and leave this territory. If I see you again, I won't be this merciful." Torvin and his remaining followers limped away into the ruins, broken and beaten. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Alex's knees buckled, and I caught him, supporting his weight as Marcus rushed over. "I've got you," I whispered against his hair. "I've got you." His laugh was pained but real. "My fierce mate, what am I going to do with you?" "Love me," I said simply. "Just love me." His arms tightened around me despite his injuries. "Already do." The pack healer worked on Alex for 3 hours, stitching wounds that would have killed a human twice over. I sat beside him the entire time, my hand locked with his, refusing to let go even when Marcus gently suggested I should rest. "I'm not leaving him," I said, and the finality in my voice made Marcus nod with something that looked like respect. When the healer finally left Alex and I were alone in his bedroom, our bedroom now, I realized. The pretense had burned away somewhere between the elevator and the battlefield, leaving only truth behind. "I was arrogant," Alex said quietly, his voice rough with exhaustion. "When I proposed that arrangement, I thought I was offering you protection in exchange for a performance. I thought I could control it, manage it, keep it transactional." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "I didn't expect you." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would play the part and leave. Someone I could keep at a distance." His eyes found mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. Instead, I got a woman who fought for terrified animals, who saw past the monster to the man, who stood beside me in battle when she should have run. He lifted our joined hands, pressing his lips to my knuckles. "You've ruined me for anyone else, Olivia William." "Good." I leaned down, my forehead resting against his. "Because I'm not going anywhere." "The bond," he murmured. "It's not complete yet."
There's a choice you still have to make.
"I already made it." I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I made it when I refused to hide. I made it when I fought beside you. I'm making it now." His hand cupped my face, and when he kissed me, it felt like coming home. The bond snapped into place fully, a golden thread between us that I could feel thrumming in my chest, connecting my heartbeat to his. Power flooded through me, not overwhelming, but settling into my bones like it had always belonged there. When we broke apart, I could see the pack bonds radiating from him like threads of light, and now, impossibly, I could see them too. Feel them. The weight of responsibility he carried, the love he had for every member under his protection. "Luna," he whispered, and the title fit like it had been made for me. 2 years later, I stood on the ridge overlooking the sanctuary, watching the sun set over 40 acres of protected land. The main facility sprawled below, state-of-the-art medical center gleaming beside spacious enclosures where rescued wolves, both the animal kind and the supernatural kind who needed refuge, roamed freely. The hybrid rehabilitation program I'd started had saved dozens of lives, bridging the gap between human and pack worlds. Arms wrapped around me from behind, Alex's chin resting on my shoulder. "The council approved the expansion," he murmured against my neck. "Another 20 acres to the east. You spoil me." "You've earned it, Luna." His voice carried pride and love in equal measure. "The Eastern Packs are requesting your mediation for their territorial dispute. They trust you." I turned in his arms, studying the face I knew better than my own now. The dangerous stranger from the elevator had become my partner, my alpha, the man who brought me coffee every morning and fell asleep with his head in my lap while I did paperwork. The red glow in his eyes that had once terrified me now felt like home. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "That day in the elevator, offering me the deal?" Every day. At my sharp look, he smiled. I regret that I let you think it was just business. That I wasted time we could have spent like this. His hand settled over my heart, where the mate bond hummed between us. But I don't regret finding you, claiming you, loving you. I'd do it all again, exactly the same, just to end up here. Below us, Marcus was organizing the evening patrol while Connor supervised feeding time. Both of them integrated into my sanctuary work as naturally as I'd integrated into pack life. My phone buzzed with messages from volunteers, from pack members seeking advice, from the life I'd built from ashes and fear. I love you, I said, simple and true. I love you, Alex replied, pulling me closer. My Luna, my mate, my Olivia. The sun set over our territory, painting everything gold, and I smiled against his chest. I'd run into that elevator fleeing one man, only to crash into my destiny. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you stopped running and started fighting for what you deserved. And I deserved this, deserved him, deserved the pack, deserved the sanctuary I'd built with my own bloodied hands. I was no longer the scared woman clutching supply boxes. I was Luna, and I was finally, truly home.